Soon the smiling image of John Paul II will once again adorn St. Peter's Square. He will officially be recognized as a saint of the Church, making him an example for Catholics around the world. But in his 26-year pontificate, it can be easy to overlook some of the key points that marked his life and his papacy. So here are a few examples.
Questa esperienza di un operaio e nello stesso tempo di un seminarista clandestino mi è rimasta per tutta la vita. Nella fabbrica per fare il mio turno 8 ore di giorno e di notte. Ho portato con me alcuni libri. I miei colleghi, vuol dire gli operai, si sono meravigliati un po', ma non scandalizzati.
He was a pope everybody felt close to. He loved to laugh and wasn't afraid to show it. He was also known for hugging people. He wasn't afraid. He was a man of deep faith who put his trust in God. He prepared for the priesthood at a clandestine seminary founded by the then Cardinal of Krakow. And because of the tense atmosphere, he was ordained in secret. He always challenged everyone to not be afraid of life's difficulties.
Non abbiate paura.
He never denied his health problems. In fact, he would even joke about them every now and then.
Come vedete, è un papa un po' deficiente, ma non ancora decaduto.
He underlined the importance of conscience instead of hatred, and this, he said, was the best way to counteract materialism. He chose understanding as a path towards democracy.
Known for his nonviolent campaigns of civil disobedience, Mahatma Gandhi became an international symbol of peace and human rights.
Gandhi has been able to inspire people throughout history.
While in South Africa, Gandhi organized the Indian community to oppose prejudice and racial discrimination through nonviolent resistance. During his more than 20 years in the country, Gandhi was arrested 6 times for his acts against the South African government.
What Gandhi means by nonviolence is to not respond to your oppressor or your attacker with equal violence. But he used his body, he used his words, and he used the community. Because when you get enough people rising together to stand in protest, there's a power there.
When Gandhi returned to India in 1915, he became well known as a humanitarian and rising political figure. Gandhi worked for Indian independence over British rule and later was given the name Mahatma, meaning great soul. As first consul, Napoleon reformed education and the law, creating the Napoleonic Code that allowed freedom of religion and denied privileges of noble birth. As a product of the revolution, the other powers in Europe despised Napoleon.
A lot of people think Napoleon was short. He was actually probably about average height. But of course the British really tried to play down Napoleon as much as they could, make him seem this small, puny little figure. So a lot of what we get about Napoleon's size comes from British propaganda.
Voted emperor for life in 1804, Napoleon won the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, which would solidify him as one of the greatest commanders in military history.
The final shots of the battle were Russians fleeing across a frozen pond, and Napoleon targeted the pond with his artillery and sank the Russian troops where they froze to death.
Colin Powell was a regular guy, 4-star general, and he never forgot where he came from.
In 1962, Powell was deployed to Southeast Asia.
While he was there, his wife Alma was with her family in Birmingham, Alabama, and while he was in the jungles of Vietnam, the racists in Birmingham, Alabama were blowing up churches.
In 1963, while on patrol, Powell was wounded by a booby trap. He rose through the ranks, and during a second Vietnamese tour, Major Powell survived a chopper crash. He was injured, but still managed to pull others from the wreckage.
He received a Purple Heart. Those kinds of experiences really shaped him very much.
In 1987, he became the National Security Advisor. In 1989, General Powell was made the first African-American chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff by President George H.W. Bush.
I once interviewed him when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and said, General Powell, here you are, son of Jamaican immigrants, born in Harlem, raised in the South Bronx. You're black and you're chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said, it's a wonderful country, Sam, it's a wonderful country.
In August 1990, Iraq invaded its oil-rich neighbor Kuwait. Powell led a coalition of nations to force Iraq out of Kuwait.
Reporters asked Colin Powell how he was going to deal with the million-man Iraqi army. Powell kind of smiled and he said, first we're going to cut it off and then we're going to kill it.
Powell made very clear that the United States shouldn't go in unless it went in all the way. Massive overkill. It shouldn't be a fair fight. We need to overwhelm the enemy. And this was known as the Powell Doctrine.
The brief, successful action made Colin Powell a national hero.
He was an American on a mission, heading to the place he told friends was the most frightening he'd ever been. For 25 years, he had saved tens of thousands of lives in the world's worst killing grounds.
He cared desperately about the misfortunes of others, and it was palpable in him.
CUNY was a take-charge Texan who spent his life chasing trouble.
It was also the sheer balls of just getting there and challenging any government official to stop it.
Fred operated on the edge of the envelope, and he was a risk taker.
A shocked world watched in horror. But it was not just the hollow-eyed babies that unsettled Fred CUNY.
I was a very small piece of the machinery in those days. Seeing the miserable conditions in the camps was enough to make me realize that the so-called experts didn't know their ass from a hole in the wall. Everybody was just shooting from the hip. Within a short time, I was abandoning my career to become a full-time disaster relief specialist.
Bringing with him a big idea. Disaster relief could provide development opportunities for those who were suffering if the local culture and the local economy were taken into account.
I think he always made very rapid contact with local people, and he absorbed that like a big sponge. All that information was fed into him, and the speed with which he was able to grasp what was going on and distill it and come up with ideas was extraordinary. Some people said, how can you do that so quickly? And of course, sometimes it was wrong, but at least he was able to make decisive observations.
The way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move? For me, luck is preparation, meeting the moment of opportunity. There is no luck without you being prepared to handle that moment of opportunity. You don't have to hold yourself hostage to who you used to be or anything you ever used to do, because who has lived and hasn't made mistakes? I say to my girls all of the time that your real work is to figure out where your power base is and to work on the alignment of your personality, your gifts that you have to give, with the real reason why you're here. I would say to my team, well, it doesn't matter, because every season somebody else was coming out. One talk show, two talk shows, three talk shows. There have been over 100 talk shows since we started. But every time I would feel like, all right, got to step up our game, got to step up our game. The way you step up your game is not to worry about the other guy in any situation, because you can't control the other guy. You cannot control the other guy. You only have control over yourself. That belief that that would not be my life is what I held on to for the longest of times. I just, no matter what, believed that there was something bigger, greater, more for me. I always understood that there really was no difference between me and the audience. At times, I might have had better shoes, but at the core of what really matters, that we are the same. And you know how I know that? Because all of us are seeking the same thing. You're here at this fabulous school, and we'll go out into the world and each pursue based upon what you believe your talents are, what your skills are, maybe your gifts are, but you're seeking the same thing. Everybody wants to fulfill the highest, truest expression of yourself as a human being. A lot of people don't know their purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, your immediate goal is to figure that out, because otherwise you're just wandering around here. So the moment you can figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing, the sooner you are able to get about the business of doing that. My life is fueled by my being, and the being fuels the doing. So I come from a centered place. I come from a focused place. I come from compassion. It's just my nature. I come from a willingness to understand and to be understood.
Right.
And I come from wanting to connect. I mean, the secret of that show for 25 years is that people could see themselves in me all over the world. If I could say anything to you, it would be, relax. It's gonna be okay, girl.